Hi, this is Talon Jane. This is my FTT 114 week 3 practical application or assignment 1, I believe it is. So for this week, we're going to start our work on our custom Kydex holster. This is something that I've done in the past, but not quite to the level that I'm doing it for this assignment. So I have made pocket holsters similar to this one. This was, well, not similar, this is one of them. For today's project, we're going to be making a holster for this. This is my new SIG P320 X5 Legion with the TLR TLR1 light on it. And in addition to that, this one doesn't have an optic on it yet, but it will eventually. Luckily, this shows exactly where the optic is. It's optic ready. So we'll just make sure that our Kydex case basically comes around the front here to make room for the optics later. This is going to be an over the waistband or outer waistband style holster, more in the line of like a competition. So it'll be a right-handed holster and it'll be a vertical draw. So I'm gonna go ahead and move over to our bench. We're gonna talk about some of the things that I've done leading up to this assignment to prepare for this assignment, in addition to some of the tools or whatever that I recommend you purchase or get before you start this assignment. So with that being said, welcome to week 3, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Making a Kydex holster. The stuff that the school sends you is enough to do a super basic Kydex holster. It's not really what I want for this particular firearm, so I'm going to show you some things that I have that are a little extra. So I'll talk about what the school sends and also what I purchased separate. So this is just some of the Kydex stuff that we could talk about here. These are for doing inside waistband, kind of drop into your pant style holsters. I might do one of these for my wife. For her shield. She recently got a laser put on the front, so her sheaths don't fit it anymore, or her holsters don't fit it anymore. If you can't tell, I usually make sheaths with Kydex, so that's why I keep saying sheath. These are good because you can drill them wherever you want to drill them at. I usually try and space them out about 1 inch, but you can make them slightly adjustable as well. So I have a few of those, enough to do 2 holsters with those. These came from the schoolhouse. These are also for inside waistband. I've seen these used 2 different ways. So you could do inside waistband, where you can basically go around the belt and then re-snap them. I've also seen them as kind of a second layer of retention for a holster. You'll basically, once the holster is made, you would attach this on the outside, put the snap, and this would go over the top to keep it from being drawn. You may do that for a duty holster, or maybe there's some other options that are a little better. There's one where you push a button and it slides open and closed. I don't remember what it's called, but I'll link it in the video or whatever so you can see it. So there's those. These are for a smaller waistband, maybe like a concealed carry like that P365 I showed a minute ago. Basically, these just open up so that you can put it over your waist. So I would consider this kind of a outer waistband or over the waistband for a smaller pistol like the P365 or a Shield or a Hellcat or anything like that. Glock, what is it, the 43? I don't know Glocks. I'm not a Glock guy. So we have those. These came from the schoolhouse. This is a kind of just a generic belt one. This one, same thing. This could probably be used either way, as either an over the waistband or an under the waist or inside waistband. So this could go depending on how you put it on your holster, I would say it's probably better for an outer waistband, but it's a slightly bigger, not quite adjustable, but it's a decent one, you know. So that's for that. That's the one the schoolhouse sent us. Most of these I got from knifekits.com. Ironically, they're the ones who, let's see if I can, these guys right here, knifekits.com. They're the ones that sent us a lot of the gear for the class too. So that was kind of cool because I'd already been working with them. This is the one I'm going to use for this pistol. This is a Tech Lock. These little guys are Tech Locks too. So this is a Tech Lock. Outer waistband is the style that I'm going to do, and these are basically meant to, I can never get this stupid thing, there we go. These are meant to go on a gun belt. They're adjustable, so you can move these around to change the size of the belt that you're using. So you just pop this part out, whatever, and then, you know, you can make it so that it sits, you know, if you have a little thin belt or a big wide gun belt or whatever. So those go in there. And then, you know, basically you can put it on while you're wearing it. You know, you can slide this down in and then clip it on, and you don't have to take off your belt to do it. So the Tech Locks are really good. This little retention thing here at the bottom locks it in. I always screw this part up, but basically that little deal right there keeps it from coming apart. The nice thing when you buy things like these Tech Locks, they always come with all of the hardware that you need to attach them. Sometimes you need different hardware if you do real thick Kydex or something like that, but we should be good today. So that's the one we're going to use for this particular firearm. They sent us this as well for peening over the rivets. So these are some rivets. Can't remember, these ones the ones? I think the schoolhouse sent these ones. They just sent us enough for basically one holster. I already started putting this stuff together, so it comes all separated. Here's your snaps that you need for the snap ones here. So I'd probably put those in there so they don't get lost with them. And then you've got this deal right here. This is for your retention. So that'll be what you do for squeezing down your retention. A couple of, what do they call them? Chicago screws. I think that's what they're called. There, and then more rivets. There's another retention piece right there. So this is a smaller one, one that I already had that's basically the same style as what they sent, but this is more for these littler rivets. Okay, and then lastly, this is for an inside waistband, kind of that style like these. These would go together. What this does is it pushes the holster away from your belt so that your butt of your firearm kind of cants into your body to help reduce printing. So that's cool. All right, so some tools that we're gonna need in addition to this stuff. So again, this is the Tech Lock. You can get these from Knife Kits. This is what I'm gonna use. Depending on how thick my Kydex ends up being will be whether or not I go with these big fat guys or these littler skinnier ones. I won't be using this. I'll explain that when we get out to the shop. For inside here, we're going to talk about what we're going to be using for blocking. Now, what blocking does is it makes it so that when you are preparing your firearm for your Kydex sheath, if you just fold Kydex over this, there will be parts where the Kydex sinks down, and this flashlight wouldn't be able to get through that sunken section in order to get to where it needs. So what you need to do is create a path for that flashlight. You need to create, like on this side, you need to create a path for the slide stop here. Same thing on this side, you know. I'm not super worried about the or this is the slide stop, this is the takedown. So anyways, I'm not super worried. This is an ambidextrous slide stop. I'm not super worried about the slide stop because I think it's going to be behind the last part of the Kydex. So, you know, I'm not worried about creating a block for this, but I am for the takedown lever. Okay, so with that being said, what do we need in order to create blocking? So on a lot of these videos, I see people go to like Home Depot or wherever, craft store, and they buy a bunch of popsicle sticks or tongue depressors, and they use that to create the blocking. And that's fine, except for it's not going to last very long. I don't think it's going to give you as clean a looks as what I'm going to suggest, which is that you go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, Ace, True Value, whatever, and you pick yourself up a couple pieces of like aluminum bar stock. It's like $5 for a 3-foot section, so it's super cheap. You can cut aluminum with any type of saw, scroll saw, wood saw, whatever, and you can start cutting out shapes now. So like I've got some square ones, so this is, yeah, this was $5.89 for this aluminum flat stock. So this is just a little piece of like 1/2 inch, super thin stuff, you know, but you can start creating kind of some blocks there. I'll talk about these pieces here in a second. So you can create a whole bunch of pieces just out of one piece of that bar stock, you know, and I still have some left over. I was able to create all of these pieces to make it so that I could block out this pistol. So like, for example, these little 9mm pieces, these will fit in here real nicely, and that'll help me block out this part. They can take up the space I need in order to block out this piece. So grab yourself a piece of this aluminum here. Okay, so that's one part of your blocking. Another thing, if you're doing a flashlight, I really like PVC or conduit, plastic conduit or plastic PVC. It's super easy to cut, super easy to shape. So I was able to get a piece of conduit and basically shape these pieces. All it is I cut the conduit right down the middle and then sanded it back to where it was thinner. Put a drill bit in, cut out these little pieces right here. And what'll happen with these is they'll slide over that right there. They match the contour of the flashlight. I could put a couple of these spacers or whatever up underneath here to level it out. And then what that does is it creates that same shape, which will be real nice, you know, looking on the sheath. And the flashlight, when it's sliding down in, if I can turn this like this, will slide right into that channel and where it needs to be. So conduit or PVC, if you're like me and you're a hoarder and you have stuff in the corner of your garage, I had all of that already. So here's another piece right here that I used to make a block for this bottom part right there, just so that again it would match up with this round part right here. Otherwise this piece would be trying to get past this piece. So again, you just got to create those channels so that when it slides in, it's ready to go. So that's what we're looking for there. All right, so there's some of our blocking. Now these pieces here, what these are kind of like jigs. They're still blocking, but they're kind of like jigs. These are all aluminum. So these are all these ones. This one's steel, but these are aluminum. And what they just came from a piece that was about that wide that I cut down the middle. So it was this wide. So this is all from one piece of pipe or whatever. The reason why they have holes in them is so that when I press the Kydex down, it should dimple just a little bit in these spots, and it'll kind of show me exactly where I need to drill the holes. But what they are is blocking for when you're putting on your pieces here. This right here lines up perfectly with these right here. So what this will do is wherever I put this on the pistol, it will force the Kydex out just that much so that when I attach it with this hardware, that hardware is going to be inside the Kydex. The last thing you want to be doing is sliding your pistol down inside of a Kydex sheath that has the hardware flush with the inside of the Kydex sheath, because you're going to scratch your pistol, right? And I mean, I just bought this thing. I don't want to scratch it. So with this, that will give us the space we need for our hardware, and it'll give us a nice flat surface to mount these to. So what I do is every time I get a new style of like holster or sheath material, I'll make a new one of these, right? So they're reusable. You can use them as many times as you want. You just line up the holes, you know. So here's the one for the large tech lock. Here's for the small tech locks. These ones fit for the small tech locks. This one is the new one. I just made this one for the part that they sent us. Okay, so this one fits. This one fits here. And as annoying as these little bags are, I highly recommend you keep all of your stuff in it. It keeps the hardware together. But this one lines up perfectly with that, so that if I make this sheath now, the Kydex will push out that much, which if you see lines up so that this is a nice clear path channel or whatever for your belt to go into. So now if I put this anywhere on my pistol, that would bump out that Kydex in just that spot and allow me to mount this where I need to mount it. And because I put the holes in it, it should line up the holes in the Kydex. I should see the little dimples, which will make it a lot easier to drill out for these pieces. So these ones right here are a little different. These are for these big flat long ones. And what's good about these ones is since they have the holes in them, when it makes the dimples, I can use these as a guide for drilling the actual drop, I don't know, belt retention, whatever they're called. I think they call them holders on knifekits.com. But basically, this will allow me to mark up this as well as to mark the Kydex. So those are handy as well. And they line up so that when you put them together, you should be able to put them on this, put them on your firearm, and reuse them. So we've talked about all of our blocking options. Now the one block I didn't talk about is the retention block or retention, piece or whatever. What that is you want about 1/4 inch of space right down the middle seam of your firearm. And what that allows you to do is squeeze together the Kydex or loosen up the Kydex to increase or decrease the retention for your particular holster, okay? Now, the reason why that's important is because with you blocking everything out, you still have to have a retention point, okay? And what I mean is a part that kind of your firearm, as it's moving past, it's tighter, and then that piece clips into, well, here, let me grab that other sheet and I'll show you. So on this one, the retention point is right here, okay? So it's the trigger guard that's the retention point. So when this pushes in and it gets to that point, it sucks into that point and it holds. This has a retention screw right here that you can tighten down and increase or decrease that retention point right here. Now on this one, we're not going to have that same thing, because when we put these on, that's going to block our trigger area. So we're not going to have the retention right there. I don't want the retention right here where the slide is at. So my retention is going to be actually this little spot right here. This is going to be the part where there's the most retention on both sides. So when I put in my retention screws, which will be like right here and right here, I'll be able to tighten that down and it'll squeeze that little dimple that's in this space right here to help hold it, okay? So when we're talking about, I keep thinking you're on the other side of the table, but it's probably upside down every time I do this, but not that there's a right side up. But this is the retention point. So when I'm blocking this stuff out, for example, this piece right here, and I tape this down, I need to make sure that I leave just enough space right here so that the Kydex kind of goes down into this spot so that when the firearm is down inside the holster, it holds in place. You don't want a lot of retention. Like you think you want it to just snap in and snap out, but you want to be able to draw your pistol without it ripping your holster off of your belt, okay? So, you know, that's what the adjustable retention comes from. Now, for a lot of times, you're going to see people use like a 1/4-inch piece of wood. That's probably your best option. I go for the cheapest option, and for me, that was some scrap, what do they call this stuff? Plexiglass, that I was able to get from, you know, Ace or True Value or something like that. I got like a sheet of this stuff for $10. It's a 1/4-inch thick. I don't think it's going to be affected at all by the heat of the Kydex when I squeeze down on it. And I also don't think it's going to really deform or anything over time like wood might, you know, especially plywood. So all I've done so far is I basically just went through and kind of traced around this. So I think I had that right. So, or no, there we go, this way. So basically all I did was trace around this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut along this line here. That'll go all the way back. And this piece right here is your retention piece. So when we get done blocking, this piece right here will slide up right into the middle and we'll tape it into that place. So this will be my retention piece. If it doesn't work at the end of this video, I will have already made a comment down here about how terrible of an idea it was to use this plexiglass and how I've already gone back and purchased the wood. Okay. The last thing you need to be concerned about is the sights on the top, okay? And specifically, we're talking about the front sight. Now, if you have one of those new SIG, what are they called? SIG Legion Max, they don't even have a front sight. So you don't even need to worry about this part. You know, their optics, they come with the optics already on them. They don't have a front sight, really sharp looking pistol. They don't have these either. So these right here would be something I would be worried about if I was pressing the Kydex flat against the top. But since I'm trying to protect this front sight, you can get a little piece of dowel rod. I ran the front of this dowel rod into a bandsaw. I sanded down the bottom of the dowel rod flat, and then this last part right here is shaped to match this piece right here. So if you'll see, I slide this on the front right there, and it basically fits and creates that channel that we need to slide that sight all the way to the front. So, you know, again, a lot of this is the prep that I did prior to getting ready to do this assignment. I think that pretty much covers blocking and the parts that you're going to want to do anything. Some of this stuff to pay attention to, if you see this little battery knob right here, that could become an issue if you don't prepare for it. Taking a little thing like this and putting it like that will give you that channel that you need for that battery. So just, you know, because this one I ran so flush to the bottom of this that doesn't really create the channel that we need for that battery there. So just be aware. Also, when you're taping your firearm, different people do different amounts. If you're Cerakoted or hydro dipped or something, you're gonna want a lot of space. In fact, if it's hydro coated, I probably wouldn't even recommend doing Kydex. Well, you know, to each their own. But you're gonna do a lot of layers of tape, and by that, what I mean is you're gonna do like 5 layers of tape just on the firearm slide and everything itself before you do anything else. And what that does is it makes a little bit of space between the Kydex and the pistol so that it's not directly against the firearm, so that when you are sliding it in and out, it's not wearing away the black, you know, coating or whatever inside of your pistol. So with that being said, the next part of this is going to be me blocking this out, and I'm probably going to do it in a little faster speed because I've already explained everything. So with that being said, oh, and I'll go cut this out. So you'll see me cut this out, and then I'll start blocking this all out, and we'll go from there. So there we go. One thing I forgot to mention is you should take out the battery of your flashlight. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is I'd like to do something a little different with this holster, and I'd like to have a raised Legion symbol on it. So I know you probably can't see it in this little piece of plastic, but I've printed out a sticker of a Legion symbol. So I'm going to go out to the shop and I'm going to take a little piece of aluminum and I'm going to cut it to this Legion shape. And then I'm going to tape that Legion symbol on right here. And then I think that will be it for blocking. And we'll be able to move on to the next part. So. We're about ready to get started with our press of our Kydex. And I couldn't decide between doing 2 layers or doing 1 layer to get the definition. But I think I have enough Kydex to do both options. So what I'm going to be doing is, first one is going to be the simpler one, which is going to be the single layer of the dark gray, and then the second one is going to be the dark gray over black. So to do the single layer, I'll be using the heat press. You can get these on Amazon. I don't remember how much I paid, $100, something like that. I have it set to 365 for 140 seconds. We'll be checking it, and should end us up somewhere around 335 degrees or whatever for our Kydex. For the double layer, it gets a little bit more complicated because this can't fit 2 into it, and you really don't want to do 2 at the same time, especially if they're varying thicknesses. So we're going to use the toaster oven. So we have the toaster oven out here as well. I'm not quite sure how to ensure that I get them at the exact same time. So what I'm going to do is probably test heat a piece of Kydex here off camera and just see how long it takes to reach that 330 degrees. And then time that with this so that they both finish at roughly the same time. For a 2-layer I'm still in knife world. For a 2-layer Kydex holster, the heat combined with the pressure should cause the 2 layers of Kydex to bond to each other. It's not, I mean, you can prime apart, but it should create a pretty cohesive one-piece holster. So trusty press ready to go. So you'll get to see me either fail or succeed with this. I did grab, just in case, a couple of clamps here that are ready to go. Just in case I need to add some pressure to the front here if I can't get enough for just pushing down with the vise, but I highly doubt that. Gloves, safety glasses. This is just a piece of like, I don't know what they call this, like non-stick stuff. It's kind of got like a, I don't know if you'll be able to tell in there, like a woven pattern. When you do this, you want to put the texture side down towards the mat. Then this goes between the Kydex and the press. That should keep it from melting to the press. So for our Kydex colors, I grabbed a few here. So we have black, we've got OD green, looks black on the camera. And then these are the ones that you get from the class. They're black as well. I think they're 080. So just so you're tracking, normally when you do 2 layers, you want to either do an 060 and an 060 or an 060 and an 080, and you can get that with your, when you're ordering them. So I have a dark gray that's almost the perfect color for the Legion. So I'm going to be doing this one for the single layer, and then I think to change it up and do something a little different, I'll do this lighter gray with the black for the 2-layer one. The lighter gray one, this is 060, this is 080, so this 06 and 08 together should make a holster that's a decent thickness. And I'm just repeating what the experts say. I am by no means an expert. So in just a moment, when I get everything cut and ready to go, to cut it, I should probably go over that. To cut your holster, all you're gonna do is take your item, I'm using a firearm, you're gonna lay it down, roll it over, and that's how much you need. For me, it's probably, because this is a large firearm and a large holster, it's pretty much the entire 12 by 12 piece with just a little strip off the top because I don't need it to be that long. So, you're not gonna make a lot of holsters out of it. You're gonna make, if you buy these 2 foot by 12 inch, 24 by 12, you probably get a couple holsters out of them. So, with that being said, next thing you're gonna see me doing is heating up the Kydex, and we'll do the single one, and we'll let it cool. So, here we go. Put the Kydex in there, shiny side up. We're gonna go ahead and bring this down. Get it going. 140 seconds. You're gonna check the temperature. I look for 335-ish. Ready with our press, ready with our mold, which is the actual firearm. If I didn't state it before, obviously make sure your firearm's unloaded, safe, everything else. Also make sure your batteries are out of your flashlight. I'm gonna fast forward this, so if you're watching that little clock, it's gonna start going fast. Alright. Bring that across. There's our Kydex. 330 perfectly. Take that, it starts cooling real quick. We're going to bring this up in here. Put our firearm up in there. Keep it nice and tight. Start clamping this down. Well, that worked just about as beautifully as I could hope that it would. Oh. Don't really want to go too much more and risk breaking my polymer gun. So, okay. We're going to give that about 3 minutes, so we'll be back in 3 minutes. Actually, it's been probably about 8 minutes, 9 minutes, so I'm sure this has cooled down enough. I hope I wasn't blocking this when I was pressing it down, because this press that I built worked perfectly. So it dropped fast, it tightened up really tight. So tight that I stopped tightening because I was afraid of crushing my polymer gun. So Well, here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
So, how do we do? Hey. I'd say we got some good definition. So there's that side. Oh, that looks good. The little foam stuck from the press. This might press a little too strong, actually. I might need to back off a little bit. Boy, that looks really cool, though. So there it is. Looks real nice. Worked flawlessly. So now it's just going to be a matter of shaping this to the shape that we want it. That's for the next part of this video. While we're still here, we're going to go ahead and do the 2-layer and expand our reach over to the toaster oven too. So if you're heating with a toaster oven, watch this next part. I ran this through the toaster oven. It took about 4 minutes for it to reach 330. It starts dropping immediately after you pull it out. I'm not positive that it is the best method. First off, it curls a lot. You see that curling up in there. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You know, you probably make it work. I just, I don't know. The t-shirt press is by far the best method to go. You're going to pay, you know, 40, 50, 60 bucks for a toaster oven. That one was a little bit more. It's got like the air fry option and stuff like that. Walmart didn't have the cheap ones. So I think if you're going to do this at all, just splurge and get one of these. They're, like I said, like $100 on Amazon. So, but as far as doing 2 layers, now we're in a conundrum because I'm not sure the best way to heat both of these separately to put together. There's not enough room in here to do both of them at once. So what I think I'm going to do is, I have the toaster oven set for 300. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the black one, then I'm going to move it over to the toaster oven, and then do the gray one, and hope that it basically maintains temperature in the toaster oven, and that's probably a terrible idea. But that's what we're going to try, and we have extra Kydex if it doesn't work. So, all right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get everything back together. Get our mold back over here. That is warm. And bring that down. I noticed because they were different thicknesses, they shrank in different ways, which was interesting. I just lined them up as best as I could and got the pistol right in the middle of them. So we'll see how this turns out. May or may not work. We already have one success, so this is a bonus. There's some good news and some bad news when it comes to the 2-layer sheath. The good news is that it was easy to get the foam that stuck to it off. Just a tiny little bit of acetone and it just rubbed right off. The bad news is you can see we had a bit of a failing on some of the blocking. So this block that goes right here looks like it to have collapsed under the heat, you know, because it's still there, but it bended down. So that's probably because I used the PVC blocks. They were good for one-time use, you know, made a nice channel, but after that it failed out. I don't know that this is a complete loss. I just may have to change the way this works. It may come in from here. No, because that's a trigger. I don't know. It's probably a loss, but it was a nice try, you know. We got a good bond between the black and the gray. Still got good definition, you know, to be able to put in our holder or whatever, but that's okay. That was an experiment. It didn't work. No big deal. Now, the successful one was this one, which I'm actually happier with because it's the exact Legion gray, which, you know, I'll need to go through and rub off the same foam from this one. But now we need to do our design. Here's our optics plate. Okay, so there's where our optics are going to be. This is the outside. This is the inside. So we're going to basically come over this and then up here. Do our sweat shield, something like that, and then somewhere in here we're going to come back down. I go around that, and then where our trigger's at, that'll come down here, and then out like that. We'll run a straight edge. Do something like that, and then come in here, right up over the edge of that, and over the edge of that. So that's this side. Let's go ahead and straighten this up a little bit. So probably get away with a little bit more like that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and we will go back inside and kind of do some figuring on the actual firearm and see exactly where we want to change the shape at all. But so far, I'm really liking the way it looks, so I think we're doing pretty good. This is the inside, right-hand carry. And we need to do some cleanup here to make sure that there's room for the optic. So we'll need to come down a little bit more, or at least out a little bit more on both sides. On this side, I like the finger, but I think we could go pretty much straight across here. I need to look at some other sheets and see how they look. If it's a arch here, or what. That gray matches really well though. And then as far as this goes, I don't know if I should take that in a little bit or if that comes out too much. You know, end looks good. Sights aren't being touched at all. It's perfectly surrounded by its little teepee here. So that's good. I think I'm gonna do the rest of this out on the band sander to get this part out. This part I like the shape of now. I'm gonna bring this angle in so that it matches this one, and I'm gonna teeter this back just a hair. So we'll go out and do that on the band sander. Maybe went a little bit further than we should have, but either way, this is the pressed Kydex in the, I can't remember what they call this color. I'm going to call it Legion Gray because it's basically Legion Gray. It looks real good on here. You know, it protects the trigger, you know, and it just, honestly, I'm real pleased with this right here. Still not sure if I'm going to paint that. I guess we'll decide for week 4's assignment. So this will be the end of the number 3. I will say, you know, I set out initially to kind of make a competition style holster. In reviewing a lot of the holsters that I saw, competition style tends to drop a little bit further and be out a little bit more from the belt. So this is more just like a primary carry holster for the X5 Legion with the TLR. So for next week's assignment, we will be adding the rivets here with the retention screws. So these will go in here, boom, boom. And we will be adding the tech lock system on the back here. And we will be finishing up. I already kind of started to sand these out. If you have a buffer, a dry buffing wheel works really good on Kydex because it gets hot and it kind of just puts a nice little smooth finish on it. So you know, while I was out there sanding it or whatever, I just grabbed the buffing wheel and kind of started to go over this, but it still needs a little bit more. There's some other stuff. And I do want to hit this with the heat gun and just flare this just a hair, just so that when you go to put it in, it, you know, finds its home a little bit easier. It also gives you a spot to put your thumb against to push when you're pulling out your pistol. But you could tell just with me holding it with my thumb at that 1/4 inch mark, it's got a great retention. So we'll see how it goes once we put these 2 rivets in and we add this space on here. So I will point this out. You remember I was talking about how you use those blocks to try and kind of push out what you're working on. You'll see how this sticks out about 1/8 of an inch, and inside it's inset about 1/8 of an inch. So when I put the hardware on, that will be, that space right there protects the gun from ever touching the hardware. So that's what I was talking about in building those blocks. So I highly suggest you take the time to build the blocks. Plus, like I said, look how much easier it's going to be to drill this. Boom, 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 boom. That quick. Boom, boom. Speaking of drill bits, this is what you want. Not necessarily Montana brand, but the Brad point, okay? You'll see it's a little bit different. It's got a sharp point right in the middle and then out to the side. These work the best on Kydex. You're gonna want a 1/4 inch one for these bigger fat ones. And I can't remember what size the littler ones are, but you're gonna want that drill bit for those littler ones. I probably won't need the smaller one because I'm gonna be using the hardware that the school sent us, which should all be 1/4 inch, I think. Let's look. Oh no, that's a little smaller. So we'll need a smaller drill bit there. I'll have to figure out what size that is. But we'll get that one, and then that'll be when we drill these 2 holes. And it's arbitrary where you put them. So probably about 1 inch down and 1 inch up, somewhere around there. But we'll tackle that next week. Otherwise, pretty happy with that. Thanks.